Hi everyone, it's Lish from Devalishangell. Today I'm going to show you how to make these strappy bikini bottoms. There's two ways that you could do the side straps. For this one, I attached them together with the seam here. And then this one, I just left them separate. I kind of like the green one better because I feel like it helps to prevent the straps from rolling and it just looks more flattering. The materials I'll be using are my pattern, a strap turner, something to cut the fabric with, clear stretchy elastic, pattern weights, and a 4-way stretch lycra bikini fabric. I'm going to start by cutting out my pattern pieces. So I need 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces. I'm not using a lining fabric for this bikini. I'm just using the same fabric for the front and the back, and actually the whole bikini. Mind you, this is my second time doing this voiceover because I edited the whole video and then my laptop took a poop and I had to get a whole new computer. So RIP, but here we are. So now that I have my front and back panels cut out, I'm going to cut out my straps. I like to cut the straps between like an inch and 1.25 inches. So whatever you feel comfortable with, just make sure it's consistent. Also, it's funny if you notice when I start to cut the strap, at first I have a nail on my thumb. And then afterwards, I don't have a nail. It just popped off in the middle. I'm like, the ghetto, like how rude to do that and embarrass me in my YouTube video. For the side straps of the bikini, I find that it's easiest to make a really long strap and I'll sew that. Then later on in the video, I'll cut it down to the sizes that I need. Now that all my pieces are cut out, I'm going to put the front pieces right sides together and clip around them, and then put the 2 back pieces right sides together and clip around them. You'll notice here that I just got so frustrated with those nails that I just took them all off. I'm telling you, this video really tested my patience, but I gotta come through for you guys, and it turned out cute in the end, so it was all worth it. Once I'm done clipping around it, I like to use a washable marker to put X's where I do not want to sew. So this bottom part and then these two like diagonal side pieces, I don't want to sew, so I'm putting an X there. I only want to sew the sides and the very top of both the front and the back. If you do not have a surgery, you can still sew bikinis. You just want to use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. And I do recommend sizing up because you do need more seam allowance. I am adding the clear elastic to this part, so I'm just putting it right on top of where I'm sewing. If you watch any of my other videos, you know I love this clear elastic. I use it for everything. It's super easy to work with and it doesn't give any of my machines trouble. It's easy to just slide it right under the footer. Here's what it looked like once everything was serged. You can see that I put all of the elastic on the same side. Now it's time to sew the straps, so I'm going to sew this really long one and then cut it down later. I have some that I already made previously, but I still wanted to show you guys the process. I'm using the clear elastic to sew these as well. Here I'm just cleaning up the ends and then I'm going to turn the strap right side out. From the long strap, I'm going to cut out the smaller straps that I need based off of the measurements in the pattern. Altogether, I should have 6 smaller straps. Now that they're all cut out, I'm going to start attaching them to the front. So I'm going to use my strap turner to help me pull them through. So on this diagonal section, I'm going to add one to the top, one to the bottom, and one to the middle. I'm going to do that for both sides of the front. As you can see here, usually with the straps, one of the sides you will kind of see a seam on. So I like to make sure that I'm putting the side with the seams all facing the same way. That way when you have the bikini finished, it's just a more professional look because all the seams will be facing the inside. When I'm adding the strap to the middle, it definitely helps for me to measure it out exactly where the middle is. Then just make a marker mark. That way, when I'm sewing it, I can get it perfectly in the middle because sometimes the straps move a little bit. I'm going to sew this section first with a basting stitch, which is just a long straight stitch. I just want to make sure everything looks good before I sew it down, just in case I need to seam rip and fix anything. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Also in the pattern, I have it so that the straps stick out about a 1/2 inch. That way it's easier to sew because you can kind of push it. Turning this piece right side out so I can see that everything looks good. I did feel like one of the straps wasn't directly in the middle, so I went ahead and fixed that one. This is why I recommend measuring it out and making that mark, and also doing a basting stitch first. That way you can make sure everything looks good. I'm just cutting the threads before I sew it again. Now that everything's fixed, I'm going to go over it again and really sew it. So I'm going to go back and forth on each strap just so that they're secure. Honestly, sewing it on the sewing machine is enough, but I do like to go over it with a serger too, just to be safe. So here I'm just trimming off those pieces, and then I'm just going to take it to the serger real quick. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do it. So if you sewed it down with the sewing machine and you don't have a serger, that's fine. So I did one side. Here I'm just doing the other side as well. Here I'm going to turn the front panel right side out. We need to put this front panel inside of the back panel, but to help the straps not get all twisted and turned, I like to clip them together just to make the process easier. So here I'm just putting the front piece inside of the back piece and then matching up the sides and matching up the bottom. You want to be careful and try to make sure that you don't get the front piece all twisted and turned. Once I have the front piece in there, I'm going to carefully take off the clips and then clip the pieces like how I did with the front panel, putting one at the top, one at the bottom, and then one in the middle. I'm just gonna measure out the middle piece here since I did mess it up when I did the front panel. I'm gonna measure out exactly in the middle and mark it. Once those two sides are done, I'm also gonna clip together this bottom piece here. So I just want to make sure all the layers are flat. So I just kind of push out the corners and then clip it all together. Just like I did before, I'm going to sew these sides and this bottom piece with a basting stitch because I want to make sure that everything looks good before I sew it down completely, especially for this part because you want to make sure that nothing got twisted and turned in there. Having those straps stick out about a half an inch really helps to push it through the machine, since you have something hanging off the edge of the footer that you can actually like grip and push. I'm going to seam rip a hole here about an inch wide. It's easier to do on the side with the elastic. So I'm going to turn it right side out and make sure that everything looks good. If it looks good, then I'm going to turn it inside out again and go over the seams to make everything secure. Since everything on mine looked good, I'm going to go ahead and sew those down. There's quite a few things that I do that could be skipped, such as the basting stitch and turning it right side out, the back inside out, and like doing all that. But it just serves as like a double check and like a quality check to make sure that you aren't making any mistakes, to avoid a headache and having to go back to fix things. Now that that's done, I'm just gonna go ahead and close this hole. So I'm gonna go over top of it with a straight stitch. This is what it looks like so far. So this is without the side straps sewn together. But personally, as you can see here, like when I scrunch it up together, I feel like it just looks so much more cuter. So to get those straps sewn together, I'm going to make sure that they're all flat, that they're not rolled, and then I'm going to clip them together. I like to have this seam a little more towards the back. So instead of making the seam directly in the middle, it's more towards the back um part of the bikini bottom. I'm marking out about 3.5, 4 inches from the back piece. For the smaller size, you want to do that amount, like 3.5, 4 inches. And then for the larger sizes, you might want to do like 4 to 4.5, maybe 5 inches from the back. As long as it's more towards the back than towards the front, if that makes sense. So when I go to sew these, I'm just gonna push them together very closely and then just sew them all together. So they're not on top of each other, they're right next to each other, but they're as close as I can get them to each other. And just make sure to keep them nice and snug together as you push it through underneath the footer. Again, you could leave the straps alone, but I just feel like this is so cute. If you like this tutorial and want to see more sewing content, be sure to subscribe And you can also check out my Instagram and TikTok for more. As always, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just comment them down below.